The morning light streamed through the windows of Adelaide Cottage, casting a warm glow over the family kitchen. It was a typical bustling morning in the Wales household, a world away from the formal state banquets and royal tours that filled the rest of their lives. Prince William was attempting to drink a cup of tea, a rare moment of calm before the school run, while his wife, Catherine, helped Princess Charlotte with her breakfast. The atmosphere was peaceful, a carefully constructed bubble of normalcy they fought so hard to protect. Then a small shriek pierced the air. Charlotte, who had been quietly eating her toast, looked up at her father and her face crumpled. Her eyes welled with tears, and within seconds they were flooding down her cheeks. William was bewildered. He looked at Catherine, who shrugged, equally confused. And he knelt beside his daughter's chair, his voice soft with concern. "Charlotte, darling, what's the matter? What's wrong?" Between sobs, Charlotte pointed a trembling finger at his face. "Your face! It's all scratchy. I don't like it," she wailed. William's hand instinctively went to his chin, feeling the short, prickly stubble of the beard he had recently grown. He had thought it looked rather distinguished, a small change in a life where every detail was often decided for him. But to his 7-year-old daughter, it was a terrifying transformation of her beloved papa. He tried to reason with her, to convince her that it was still him, just with a bit of facial hair. But Charlotte was inconsolable. The sight of her father with this strange dark hair on his face was simply too much. She refused to come near him, turning her face away and hiding in her mother's shoulder. For William, the decision was instant. There was no internal debate, no weighing of personal preference against his daughter's distress. He looked at the tears streaming down Charlotte's face, and his heart clenched. He saw not a minor inconvenience, but a real source of pain for his little girl. The beard, which had felt like a small assertion of his own identity, suddenly meant nothing. Without another word, he walked upstairs, found his razor, and in the bathroom mirror, he shaved it all off. He didn't wait for a convenient time or a break in his schedule. He did it right there and then. Later that day, he presented his smooth face to Charlotte. She studied him carefully, a serious expression on her young face, saw before a wide smile broke through, and she threw her arms around his neck. The crisis was averted. For William, it was a small, almost insignificant act, but it spoke volumes about the kind of father he was determined to be. This was a man who had learned from a childhood, lived in the glaring, often cruel spotlight of public scrutiny. He remembered the photographers hiding in bushes, the headlines that dissected his parents' unhappy marriage, the frantic phone calls from boarding school, and the ultimate, shattering loss of his mother, Diana, when he was just 15 years old. That trauma had forged in him an unshakable resolve. His children would never feel that same sense of confusion, insecurity, or fear. His family would be his fortress, and their emotional well-being would always come before royal protocol or personal vanity. Yet that same fierce protective instinct was about to be tested in ways he could never have imagined. The tears over a beard were a simple problem with a simple solution. But a far more terrifying storm was gathering on the horizon, one that no amount of shaving could fix. The peaceful mornings in the kitchen were numbered. The year ahead would be described by William himself as the hardest of his life, a brutal, draining period that would push his family to the breaking point and force him to confront threats from both inside the palace walls and the deepest, most personal fears a husband and father could face. The news fell on the family like a shadow. Catherine, the vibrant, active heart of their home, the woman who could be seen chasing their children through the grass in candid photographs, was diagnosed with cancer. And the word itself felt like a foreign, violent intruder in their world of school plays and family holidays. The initial shock of her major abdominal surgery in January had been difficult enough, but this discovery, the presence of cancerous cells, was a different magnitude of fear entirely. It was a private, gut-wrenching terror that they had to process while the world watched, while speculation ran rampant on social media, and while William's father, the king, faced his own cancer diagnosis. Their primary concern, the single, overwhelming focus of their existence, became their 3 children, George, Charlotte, and Louis. How do you tell your children that their mother, the center of their universe, is seriously ill? How do you find the words to explain chemotherapy to a 10-year-old, a 7-year-old, and a 4-year-old? William and Catherine knew that hiding the truth was not an option. William's own childhood had taught him that cruel lesson. The secrecy and obfuscation surrounding his parents' marriage had left him feeling sad, helpless, and insecure. He was determined that his children would not be left in the dark, left to imagine things far worse than the reality, left to feel anxious because they sensed something was terribly wrong, but no one would tell them what it was. They chose a weekend, a time when there was no school, no royal engagements, no distractions. They gathered the children in the cozy familiarity of their living room at Adelaide Cottage. Catherine sat close to them, her presence calm and reassuring despite the storm inside her. William was by her side, a solid, unwavering anchor. They spoke simply and honestly, and using words their young minds could grasp. They explained that Mummy was sick, and that she would need to go to the hospital to get special medicine to make her better. The medicine might make her very tired and she might lose her hair, but it was all to help her fight the naughty cells inside her. The children's reactions were as individual as they were. George, the thoughtful and serious eldest, asked practical questions, his mind working to understand the mechanics of what was happening. Charlotte, the sensitive and empathetic one, worried about whether her mother was in pain and if she could help by bringing her cups of tea and her favorite blanket. Little Louis, the youngest, seemed to understand in his own way, but his primary concern was whether Mummy would still be able to come to his sports day, and William and Catherine answered every question with patience and honesty. They let the children see them sad, but they also showed them strength and, most importantly, hope. They reassured them over and over that they were a team and that they would get through this together. "It's just important to be there for each other," William would later explain, "and to kind of reassure the children that everything is okay." The conversation was draining, emotional, and terrifying, but it was also a moment of profound family unity. They had faced the dragon together, named it, and planned their battle. In the weeks and months that followed, William became the shield for his family. He took a significant step back from his royal duties to be present, to manage the school runs, and to be the one to make dinner and ensure the house still felt like a home. He was the buffer, the protector, allowing Catherine the space and peace she needed to heal, while fiercely guarding their children from the relentless media storm that raged outside their front gate. He was determined to be the father he had needed, the one who provides security and safety when the world feels like it's falling apart. Even as he navigated the treacherous waters of his wife's illness and his father's cancer battle, a different kind of storm was brewing within the royal family, one that threatened to undo everything he was trying to protect. This storm had a name: Andrew. For years, William had watched his uncle, the Duke of York, with a growing sense of unease that had long since curdled into cold fury. And he had seen the way Andrew treated palace staff, ordering them around with an aggressive and dismissive attitude that William found abhorrent. It was a stark contrast to the quiet, respectful efficiency he and Catherine tried to embody. But the real issue, the one that William knew would not simply go away, was Andrew's association with Jeffrey Epstein. The 2019 Newsnight interview had been a disaster, a car crash of entitlement and a stunning lack of empathy that had cemented Andrew's fate in the court of public opinion. William, with an eye on the future of the monarchy, saw his uncle not just as an embarrassment, but as a serious and lasting threat. He privately urged both his grandmother, the late Queen, and his father, the King, to take immediate and decisive action, to cut Andrew loose completely before the rot set in any further. He viewed Andrew's continued presence, even on the fringes of royal life, as a stain on the entire family. The older generation, however, initially resisted. The Queen, guided by a lifetime of duty and a deep-seated belief in family loyalty, had hoped to handle the situation with more discretion, quietly removing Andrew's patronages and military affiliations, but not completely exiling him from the family fold. There were uncomfortable moments like the Christmas at Sandringham in 2023, when William reportedly clashed with his father over Andrew's invitation. King Charles, still finding his feet as monarch, ultimately put his son in his place and the Yorks attended. William was frustrated, but he was also patient. He knew this wasn't over. And he knew the release of more documents, more information, was inevitable. He was preparing for that moment. He found an unexpected but powerful ally in his wife. Catherine, with her unique perspective as someone not born into the firm, saw the situation with a clarity that those inside often lacked. She was a strong moral force by William's side, and they were completely united. She shared his disgust and his belief that the monarchy's credibility depended on drawing a hard line. When the palace communications team debated how to handle the constant flow of revelations, it was this united front that would eventually lead to a historic decision. While his wife recuperated privately and his children tried to understand why Mummy was so tired, William watched the news headlines with a sense of grim inevitability. In late January 2026, the U.S. Department of Justice released a tranche of 3.5 million pages of Epstein files. The scandal exploded all over again. Andrew was named once more, and the ugly details were plastered across every front page. For William, the moment for behind-the-scenes pressure was over. The time for action had arrived. He and Catherine made a decision that would shatter a centuries-old royal tradition. The decision was made in the quiet of their home, away from the palace advisors and the carefully worded memos. William and Catherine looked at the news coverage, at the victims whose stories were being retold, at the public anger that was once again directed at his family. They knew the standard royal response, the mantra famously adhered to by the Queen: never complain, never explain. It was a strategy of dignified silence, designed to rise above the fray. But to William and Catherine, in this instance, silence felt damning. It felt like complicity. It felt wrong. William was preparing for a crucial diplomatic trip to Saudi Arabia, a visit meant to showcase his role on the world stage. He knew that if he left, without addressing the Andrew situation, the entire trip would be overshadowed. Every photo op, every meeting with world leaders would be framed by questions about his disgraced uncle. More importantly, he and Catherine felt a genuine, profound sense of concern for the victims. They could not, in good conscience, remain silent. They instructed their spokesperson to release a statement, a direct and unprecedented break from royal protocol. On the eve of William's departure, the words went out to the world. It was brief, deliberate, and devastatingly clear. It made no mention of Andrew by name, a deliberate snub that spoke louder than any direct condemnation. It simply stated that the Prince and Princess of Wales were deeply concerned by the continuing revelations, and that their thoughts remain focused on the victims. The reaction was seismic. Royal experts immediately recognized it as a watershed moment. Hilary Fordwich, a royal commentator, noted that William, with the major influence of